You're listening to Rep Radio. Our goal is simple. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Our podcast breaks the fourth wall to give you an inside look at the plays and the players. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Today on the podcast, I checked my confirmation, packed my bag, and settled in for the night at Motel Montana, the latest offering from GUNNAR Montana after a long intermission. Here is my interview with GUNNAR Montana. Welcome to Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm in the virtual studio with GUNNAR Montana.
Heyo!
GUNNAR, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
It's been a while. I was thinking about, have I missed quite a bit of shows? And I didn't miss any shows. I saw Kink House, but I don't think I had a conversation with you about it. But we did have a chat in the space for Rotland, and I really enjoy that production as well. I think the work you present to an audience is just wonderful, imaginative, fierce,
Yeah.
Everything all your fans have ever said to you already.
So many adjectives.
Well.
Yes.
And Motel Montana did not disappoint at all. But before we get deep into the weeds of Motel Montana, I wanted to talk about this long intermission. I feel like it's great to hear what every artist was kind of up to in that time frame, to just kind of shed some light on that space. So let's talk about the last 18 months, what you've been up to.
What a difficult time, huh? Just dealing with the trauma. Everybody's got a little bit of trauma to deal with now. And the way I dealt with it was I kind of took on my introverted side, and I am a painter when I'm not on stage. So I painted through it, and I painted commission pieces. It's kind of like pop art styled. I did a mural for Ill Exotics on Passyunk Square, and they're a reptile shop. And I was literally just in my studio just painting away, kind of hunkered down through it all, because it was a really sad time and a very, very uninspiring time as well, right? I think we're just now getting out of that, and it's just such a relief to be out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was balancing out my energies. I didn't mind it. I had just come out of Basement. We had just produced Basement in 2019. So it was a very dark show. It was all serial killer based. And I was in a very dark place making that because, as you know, my work is very immersive for us to perform as well for the audience to be in. So taking a year off wasn't the worst for me because I kind of had to get my energies back in place. And with Motel Montana, we just did a 180 from that idea and went full happy, full neon, full rainbow, because I feel like that's really what people need. That's what I needed, at least. And so the feedback that I've gotten thus far is that people needed it as well. So yeah, I feel back on track a little bit, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, an escape is always wonderful. And I think the Fringe Festival sort of is a signal to our community. If there's any kind of adjustment to the Fringe Festival, then we know that something serious is going on.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And there are so many artists that we look forward to for their presentations in the Fringe, and you're one of them. And just to see that you continue to think outside the box and bring something to the stage is always, you know, a joy.
Yeah, and it's
I
never been more
actually, I was,
difficult, I don't think, for me.
yeah, I was actually kind of thrown off on the timeline here because I thought I experienced basement as well, but it shows up in a different order on your website.
There's two of
Was
them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right, then that
I
makes sense.
originally did it in 2013. It was like one of my first shows I ever produced. But then the more of a following I got, the more of a budget I got, I wanted to go back into it and really do it up. So we did it in 2019 as well. And
Okay.
and I love horror. I'm a huge horror fan. And if I had a choice, all of my work would be horror based. But it's only for some audiences. So I probably lost about half my audience on that one. But I was living my best life. And I'll probably, dip back into some horror themes in years to come. But yeah, it was in 2019 as well as 2013.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we are clarified, and I did experience that one too.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember saying, that was
Yeah.
okay.
You either left with squinting eyes or very excited, happy eyes,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what
Well,
was that? Or that was the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
I feel like if you're looking at the marketing materials,
Mhm.
you know, your mindset is on one thing. You know, if you're familiar with the basement graphic,
Right.
that is definitely probably a draw for a certain audience.
For
And
sure.
then you get in there and you're like, nah, actually, shit gets real in here.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people were like, being that your work is so immersive, I think I'm going to sit this one out, and that's when I know I'm doing my job well, at least.
Yes,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
So I've seen your work at the Latvian Society, and I know that you the previous production Kink House, that you did travel with that one. Is that
Mm.
correct?
Yeah, I went to
And
city.
yeah, so the Latvian Society is such a great space for you because you completely transform that space. If anybody's been in there before, whether they went for a fundraiser or they went for another show that wasn't as, completely transformative as this one, that space to be like it's a
It's a
standard
banquet
kind of.
hall. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a banquet hall with like
yeah,
a standard proscenium, and
yeah,
I've seen shows in there where they don't actually use the stage,
sure.
but you always find a way to incorporate that stage into your build
Right, yeah.
as well, and it always makes for an interesting reveal that comes out of that spot too.
For sure. I mean, I'm kind of running out of ideas because we've done so many shows here. So I'm like, how can we mess with this space even more? For a basement, we built a whole floor above it, and then we were coming out of the floor and stuff. And this one was a little more simple because COVID had affected some of the ways we went about working. So I was hands-on building it myself and my main dancer in this show actually, and we built it together for 2 months straight. Because we just didn't have the resources to hire anybody outside of it. So this was a huge learning experience, and it turned out to be a really great, fun space, but it was trying in a lot of ways. I mean, they all
Yeah,
are, but
and what a great use of social media too, because you were teasing out all these vibrant colors and these
right.
elements as they were coming together, and
I love
I
Instagram. I just love it. It's too much fun,
yeah, yeah.
It was so much fun during lockdown and during the pandemic to have that outlet as well, and to be creative on Instagram. So I got really hip to the game, and now I just have way too much fun with it. But it's always fun to build up momentum for a show by teasing it throughout the entire process. More people tell me that they like the behind the scenes stuff than the actual project. So I've been working really hard just to show people what's up and how it's done and how it's created and how it works.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about Motel Montana.
Oh, it started off as okay. So it started off as a video in the lockdown, and it was a video called Motel Montana. And I just wanted to do kind of like a music video of sorts, but we couldn't interact with each other because it was in the height of the pandemic, and nobody really knew what was going on, and nobody was really seeing anybody. So we built a hallway, and then I built individual rooms. and then we filmed individual people coming in and dancing in these rooms, and then put it all together in one scene. And that's on my Instagram, and it was and on my YouTube, and that's how it really started. And it was a super vibrant concept, and it was all about kind of like being authentically who you are behind closed doors, because everybody was behind a closed door of sorts, right? So then we turned it into a live show, and we just expanded on all these different characters and all these different ideas that came out of that video, and it just turned into this really fun, vibrant production and a really cool set of performers and characters. But yeah, it is based on my grandfather's story. He was a closeted gay man in the 50s. And talk about trauma. He went through quite a bit of it. And I just felt like I wanted to create a show of things I feel like he missed out on in his life, which coincidentally felt like things we could all use a little more of, you know, from rainbow and glitter to sex and connection to just vibrancy and color, like all of these things that I feel like represent queer life, are also things that I missed the most during lockdown and not producing work. So,
yeah. So your fans will probably recognize this, and I've sort of noticed this through my experiences with your work, that there is somewhat of a formula to your work. There are some elements that you can always look forward to.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could talk about those.
Lately, I've been working on how do I make a show that doesn't stop at all. And I'm getting close. I'm working on it. It takes a lot of time outside, like the design of it. I spend a year designing a show just in my head. And it's all about the design of it and how all these dances fit together. So what essentially you have is like an hour-long music video that's 5-minute vignettes, right? So it's about how these vignettes fit into each other and how you can keep it going. And my ideal show, the audience wouldn't be able to clap in between each vignette. So that's what I go for.
Yeah.
And that means no blackouts. You just go, 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 go. And then it's about finding people and performers that can hold their own on a stage, and then giving them a platform to be their best person, whatever that may entail, and giving them the 5 minutes to do that. So you kind of go through these performers and who you're working with, and each person kind of gets a highlight. So that's also how the show is set up. And then I focus a lot on the highs and lows of a show, and when I want my audience to cry, and when I want my audience to feel elated, and how I'm trying to say that. So it's a lot about the energy levels of the production, and that's usually based on the music choice.
And this scenic design is just mind blowing. When you walk into that space, like I said, you're completely transformed. Are you hands on with the scenic design? Are you doing a lot of this work too, or are you just laying it out and then you have a team who does that as well?
I've always been the one to design it and the one to build it, since this is a grassroots company that I've started. So I've always just been able to do it myself. When 2019 came around, I was able to kind of be a little more hands-off, have somebody design it. My lighting designer, Una Curley, is also my set designer usually. So she'll design it. And then we even had a scene shop build it. And then I'll go in and I will make it look the way I want it to look, artistically said. So if you're building a basement, I'll be the one to, put blood on the floor or make the wood stained or stuff like that. And this show, though, I kind of reverted back to my roots and built the whole thing by hand, painted the whole thing by hand. I hired a few people to do that were part of my team as well, and designed it as we went, which was really, really fun, because the show, you kind of design the show to fit the space according to what the whole concept needs. So it really is like you're here, you're building, and then you'll take a break, you'll sweep up some sawdust, you'll do a dance rehearsal, and then you'll continue to build and you'll paint something afterwards. So it's just this big, long, exhausting process of art making, which is really, really amazing.
Yeah. I remember seeing, I guess it was on Instagram, the elements of the elevator, that elevator moment, And I was wondering, I guess I was just thinking and not really thinking, wait a minute, this is the Gunnar Montana production. It's going to be much bigger than this.
Right.
But I was thinking about that as like, wow, if everything took place in this elevator, that would also be pretty awesome as well.
I mean, the elevator is a really fun part of the show because it's kind of like this magic elevator that you don't really know what's going to come out of, you know? And like and you're just kind of waiting for like what's next. And the whole show kind of like just has this great, I think there's so many fun surprises in this one, you know?
Yeah.
From characters and stuff, and the elevator is just way too much fun to have. What's even more fun about this show and that elevator is that the entire cast and crew does everything behind the scenes. So we'll run off stage after we get done dancing, and we'll have to manually open and close this elevator for somebody else. It's crazy. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
You know?
So let's break down some of these scenes.
Yes.
So we sort of opened with what I was kind of processing as the classic, you know, boy and girl check into the hotel.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like as soon as you get into the hotel, it's like, ooh, it's sexy time.
It's yeah, rock and roll. I thought there was a really fascinating story behind this first piece because I didn't know how to start the show. Because when I tell you I was going into the show very uninspired, it's very true. It was usually I have, you know, at least a year to go out to watch new work, to, you know, soak up like a sponge any artistic ideas that might come to me, and then to spit it back out into a new show. And since there was nothing going on during lockdown, it was like you went into this show empty. You know, the fuel tank was empty. The creative fuel tank was empty. You were just kind of just going as it went. So I had this conversation with my mother, and as you know, this is all about my grandfather. And she was saying that in therapy, my grandmother and my grandfather, one of the remedies for gayness was to wear more revealing clothing for the woman. So I thought that was so twisted and just so fucked up that I was like, let's start there, you know, with that idea. So I immediately was like, okay, we're going to have sex. That's what we're going to do. The first thing we're doing is having sex because you got to cure this gay man, you know? And then it kind of spins out of that into what's going on in this man's head as he's in this relationship with this woman that he's not necessarily dying to be in, you know? So I really like going into a show to make all of these concepts universal for everybody. So if everybody watching it has something that they can lean into, and it doesn't feel alienating in any way. It's queer work, but I want it to work for everybody. So representing everybody is really important to me, and I'm doing a better and better job of that. So it's fun to have, you know, a hyper straight couple and then right away turn it into like the gayest thing you've ever seen, you know?
Yeah.
Because my audience gets a kick out of it, you know, because that way you can bring your boyfriend who might be a little scared of drag queens, or you can bring your stepmom, you know, it's like there's something for everybody in these productions, which is really fun.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting thing that you can't script, you can't direct. It's the response of the audience. Right. So depending on where you are in the space, you have a different viewpoint.
For sure, because it is around. Yeah.
Yeah. So we move into what you're calling Raining Men, and I looked at that as like this is a struggle between your true self trying to come out and being hit from all sides.
Right.
You know, of like you can't run from this.
Right.
You're everywhere. You know you love it.
You know you love it.
By the end, it's just sort of like this, I'm being overcome by this gayness.
Right. And I think that's the big thing is that even when I was, you know, trying to live my life not as queer as I am, it's just not going to happen. There's this undying need to be as gay as you are, however gay that is, and it's gonna get you, you know? So whether you like it or not, you can suppress it as much as you want, but it's gonna come back and bite you in the butt. So that's kind of it's a very playful idea of just what's happening internally in this guy's head, and these very campy gay characters with their umbrellas just kind of stalking this guy through a life he's not supposed to be leading. Which I feel like was a big part of my grandfather's life. Like he knew what was up, and I can just see that he was haunted by a lot of things, you know, and his overt gayness was definitely one of them.
Yeah, and that moment reminded me of, I've been, all of the quarantine consumption, and I believe this was during quarantine, like way early on. I was thinking of Ryan Murphy's Hollywood,
Oh, for sure,
uh,
for sure, yeah.
on Netflix, and how that gas station sort of acted as this portal to to the
Right.
life you really wanted to live. And it was such an interesting moment that it's kind of like this hiding in plain sight.
Yes. Yeah.
You're out there, but we just, as long as you don't sort of vocalize it,
Right. Sure.
we can all pretend that it's not here, but we all know what's going on.
And you look at the world now, it's just changed so much. When I think about like what my grandfather's time was like and how drastically that different that is from now, it takes on even more meaning, it feels, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, opening show, one of my fans came up to me, and a big supporter of mine came up to me, and he was like, your work is the reason I was able to explore some of these facets of myself. Your work is the reason I can consider myself a bisexual man now. And I was like, shut the show down. We're done here. Like, that's exactly, like, who cares if this is successful? That's the success of the show, So it's moments like that that are really just enlightening in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. I'm gonna go through all these elements because
Sure.
I loved all the moments. Stupid Love is the next one, and it's sort of this split screen view, sort of, depending on which side of the house you're on,
Right.
you're seeing characters come in and essentially reveal their true selves.
Right. So they come in, we're playing with the idea of, being a different person from an outside perspective, and then on your spare time being what you would consider your authentic self, right? So, and we're doing this all in a neon two-way mirror, and you have two different characters exploring these ideas in different ways. And I just feel like this journey is so much better when you're not alone in it, whatever that journey is for you, that authentic self journey could be anything. We're all going through some kind of finding of self, and it's just so much more easy when you just see it on stage or you have something to relate to. So that's kind of what that is there for, in a way. And it's just fun to have non-conforming characters on a stage, especially nowadays. I think lockdown and the pandemic was a time when a lot of people were thinking inwardly and realizing that they don't conform in a lot of different ways, and they don't want to anymore. So we built that piece together, and the two dancers dancing it are beautifully non-conforming themselves. So it feels very real and it feels very authentic, and that's just kind of my nod. I don't consider myself non-binary, but that's kind of my nod to the non-binary community, and just the idea that we're here, we're queer, and we just want to be loved for it. Like, relax, that's kind of what the whole piece is about.
Yeah, I was taking notes in my head, and I was sitting next to Tracy, the PR, and I was saying, like, I should be taking notes. I said, but you know what? There's so much going on here. I'm definitely going to remember all of these elements. And one of the notes I had is like, we are now starting to see an unapologetic world emerging.
Right.
In spaces that do not ask for permission or default to us hiding in plain sight.
Right. And that's super important right now, it feels like.
Yeah. And it is wonderful. And it's just amazing what the benefits of time give you, because I always look at it as like, life is like, we're in a car that is moving too fast for us to slow down. And when the world gets to slow down, we actually take stock in everything we're doing. We say, wait a minute, is this even the path I need to be on? Am I doing the right thing? I don't regret any of what I've done, but am I doing the right thing? And
Yeah.
since we have a chance to kind of slow down, can I see whether there are alternate paths?
Right.
You
For sure.
know, is there another direction I can go in, or is there something I'm just not thinking of because I'm moving so fast?
Right. Am I living my best life? For sure.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And then we move into demons, which was clearly a dreamscape for me, and I felt like it was all dream, and and all the the dancers in black were sort of like this invisible kind of the force that's moving the dancer throughout this space, and I was like, oh my god, if this was like, oh, I could see this on screen where like
Yeah.
they just disappear, and then all the ways they're contorting her body and everything.
Right.
It's just like, oh, I could see this as that kind of control you lose in a dream, where
For
you remember that and you're like, I kind of have, my motor skills, but I'm not completely in tune with them,
Right.
and I'm fighting at the same time. And
Right.
it just felt so intense. That was such a visceral scene.
It is visceral. It's a visceral idea behind it too, I feel. Essentially it has like a kind of American Horror Story feel where we're all these kind of like um blacked out demon characters in like full black garb just chasing after this woman who's a soloist in it. And there's definitely like I was basing it off of some of the inner turmoil that comes just with queerness
Mm-hmm.
off the bat, just that non-conforming trauma you have to deal with that everybody's kind of going through. These things that kind of keep you up at night. And for my grandfather's story, he was manic depressive. He was diagnosed bipolar. And he went through a series of shock therapy as well. So I think he was dealing with a lot of internal demons. And he had a lot of really intense manic episodes that my grandmother recently told me about. So I think he was definitely mentally ill, but I think had he been able better to express himself, some of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
would have taken a back seat for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about that, and I think it's actually to a very light poppy song, which is a fun juxtaposition. I didn't want anything to be too dark in this experience because I think we're coming out of a lot of darkness, but I did want it to
Mm-hmm.
be able to be reflective. So I know that at night when you're alone, maybe in a hotel room, some scary things can start happening in your head. And this is just a reflection of that, especially if you're going through a difficult time or whatever you may be going through. That's also a universal concept, right? To be chased by demons. So
Yeah. And when you were talking about that internal struggle that we've gone through as we're trying to make sense of our own identity, um, I there have been a lot of stories that have depicted sort of that bully in high school was
mm,
someone who was struggling with their identity,
right,
and if they had been able to, be themselves without the pressures of maybe parents or gender norms, and everything that was kind of plaguing them, that they wouldn't have had all of that pent up anger
right,
and taking it out on the people who do not appear to have this struggle that they have.
for sure,
Like if there's an openly gay character and if there's an openly gay person that's being picked on by a bully,
right,
it's like now we look back at it and say, that bully,
yeah,
I wonder why is it
yeah,
that bully can't leave
right,
can't leave that one alone for
right.
some reason.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about queerness or gayness, you also have to talk about what comes with it, which is this kind of
Hmm.
a natural baggage, that just
Yeah,
just happens
yeah,
because that's how it is. Hopefully, that's not how it will always be, but it is certainly for this generation and generations past.
absolutely. And then we go into some like quintessentially fantastic, yeah, these fantasy scenes with the truck stop.
Oh, sure. Truck stop, yeah.
I was like, this is way too many adult films.
Oh, yeah. Truck stop is We call it truck stop because I feel like my grandfather, this was a scene that maybe he would have met up with these guys. This is a scene of him and how he would have explored his gayness in the time.
Mhm.
So it's very much so has that kind of Rambles feel in New York back in the day, and it's set kind of like it's set at a truck stop because there's like truck headlights, and then it's also got urinals, so it's kind of in a bathhouse. It's in it, but it's a very sexy feel, right? And it's
Mhm.
just a hyper athletic exploration of gay sex, which I think
Yeah.
is always needed in my work. It's needed more in the world, you know. Um, but I think it's so important to nod to the gay generations that got to where we're at today. And
Mhm.
and that was just, you have these cinemas and these truck stops and all these stuff that these people were forced to be at and make their own, cultivate their own um identities at these places because they couldn't do it anywhere else. And
Mhm.
you don't fortunately have to do that as much today, but it's a nod at the past generations, kind of a thank you to them as well, for going through
Yeah.
that for us.
There's also this like intensity and urgency in those elements because it's not even. I mean, just think about in general the kind of spaces that we created over the years, like um, like an American Legion and a VFW. Like these are places that like-minded people can go to and remember where they were in these
Right,
moments where they have their most relatable memories. And
right,
in these spaces for us, at least not so much our generations, but generations before us, didn't have safe spaces or
right,
in general places that they could just relate to
right,
each other.
right,
And so we had these places and they felt kind of seedy, but they're so familiar. Like if
right,
anyone's been to the bike stop, it's sort of
right,
like, there's like a new queer uh, person who goes there today does not have the sense of that space as
right.
someone who, may have first went in there like 20 or 30 years ago.
There's something really, really special about having a space that is your own, and that everybody in the space feels like they've gone through the same journey. And Bike Stop felt that way for me for a while, and then you kind of got into this new vibe of living where you're seeing more and more women pop up at gay bars, and you're kind of losing the essence of these spaces, or
Hmm.
you're changing the essence of these spaces, right? And you're progressing through that. But there is still something really, really special and really magical about having that space uninterrupted. Um,
Yeah.
and and so that's just kind of like it's almost a longing for it. I love the idea of progressing past it, but I also love the idea of just having a space like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And then, so we move on to nuns.
nuns, yeah. Oh, we missed one though. We missed one. We missed
Did we?
the vivarium box.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Oh my God! How did I miss that one? Okay, okay, yes.
Right.
Okay. How how long is that moment? It's just this beautiful slow pan
Yeah.
into the light,
Yeah.
and it's just so stunning. It's very Kate Winslet and
Yeah.
Titanic. It's very just and the was it leopard print?
Yeah, it's all leopard.
Yeah, it's this leopard print, and
Cheetah
it's just
leopard.
this
Yeah.
slow moment, and we're all just sitting there, and I could see the right audience just going,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
it's such a great moment. This moment is danced by a woman named Mika Romantic, and I saw
Mhm.
her performing at a bar, and she's got these great big titties. She calls herself the Mike Tyson of titties, and she's just a stunner. So she walk into a bar and she's performing, and she just shuts the whole place down. Right? She's
Mhm.
just got this amazing stage presence that she just takes the breath out of the room. So I was like, oh my gosh, please come grace my stage, you know? So I
Yeah.
got her in here and I put her in this box that opens up into this vivarium setting. And she was like, and I was like, you have 5 minutes. And she was like, is that all you want? And I was like, that's all you need. Like, it's just like, and like, it's just the most, because the way the show is set up, it's like 15 minutes up to this point of just like fast paced, high energy. And then we just shut the whole thing down with her just like barely moving, taking off all of her clothes, in the most sensual way possible. And it just blows my mind every time because I watch it from backstage, and it's just, I think she's stunning. You know?
Yeah, it is this pause. It's this moment of elegance
Mm-hmm.
where we just sit back and we're like, "Ah, just stunning, just
Yeah.
stunning."
Yeah.
Was such a beautiful moment, and very familiar in terms of previous productions. There's always some kind of interesting reveal.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
we don't know what's going to happen in this box. There was another one. You pull this which production? You pull this whole structure away, and there's a dancer underneath the structure.
For sure.
The
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
And that reveal, I remember that being like, oh my god, the whole time. Yes. And I think the audience went in an uproar for that as well. Yeah, but that was beautiful, and the fact that it was this neatly concealed box.
Yeah.
That once it opened up to this floral, beautiful scape,
Right.
and this beautiful creature with this wonderfully large hat.
And yeah, and again, we're talking
about
about
the whole time.
we're talking about dealing with identity, right? So a lot of people I know, at least, look like a straightforward box from the outside, or present themselves as so, and then you get to know them, and they are an entire menagerie. They are an entire vivarium. They're wildlife.
Yeah.
And a lot of people won't let that grow out of them or shine.
Yeah.
So it's just a hint at that as well.
I hope these are like exciting teasers for the people who haven't gotten their tickets yet, who get tickets right now. I hope you're getting tickets, because this is not enough. We are not saying enough of this. You have to have the experience for yourselves. Then we move into the aerial scene.
Don't forget the nuns.
Oh yes, that's right.
Because the nuns are so exciting.
Glazed over them. Yes, let's talk about the nuns.
Yeah.
Because that was beautiful and wonderful as well. Let's go into more detail with the nuns.
I have a big issue with the Catholic Church. Well, not with the Catholic Church, but how that rhetoric has been weaponized towards queer people. So I feel like it's important when you're making queer work to throw as much shade as possible in that direction. In a fun way. Like, it's fun to do. It's important to comment on, because I think a lot of resistance towards the queer lifestyle has come from some kind of religious rhetoric, right? So, and it's very deep, and it's very much so in our culture, and it started from the get-go, so it's very real. The three nuns come out, right, and they're basic nuns, and then they strip into something a little more comfortable, all while dancing in a bathtub, and it's very gay, lesbian fashion. And it's just really, really, it's a beautiful piece. They dance it beautifully. And it works, because a woman left the other day, and before she left, she thanked me and told me how powerful the work was. And then she told me that she was an ex-nun, which was amazing. And once again, the work is successful, So I think religion is something that gay people really work at and have to work through. I know I came from a town of 500 people, and everybody went to church. And when Passion of the Christ came to town, the church paid for everybody to see it in the theater. So and that was when I was a kid. Like, I didn't even know what was going on. I just went to the movies to see a movie. But you don't know how deep it is, and it's something that I think a lot of us have to work through and get through. Before we get to like a mecca like Philadelphia,
Yeah. It is kind of interesting when I think about that. We all came from these. Well, a lot of us came from these sleepy towns.
For sure.
That were in a way they were too small to contain us.
Yeah.
They also couldn't hold us.
Right. For sure.
And it was like, we have to go we have to go somewhere where it's like, and sometimes I think about it, I'm like, maybe we could have stood out in a way that was meaningful had we stayed in those towns. But we needed to find a community
Right.
that accepted us and helped us realize our true selves. And we just couldn't do that. And I remember getting older, realizing that in this small town that I grew up in, there was a gay bar, a nondescript gay bar. I walked past it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember somebody saying, like, this was before I had figured out my own identity, said, yeah, that's the gay bar. And I'm like, really? And it didn't cross my mind. Like, there was no light bulb or anything. I was just like, oh, I hardly ever see anyone come in and out, but there's always cars parked. And it was just so nondescript. And I'm like, now I'm thinking about the artist in me is like, I wonder what went on inside there.
Right,
It's very drab outside, and they do open it up and boom, some disco ball is always spinning.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
lights always playing. It's always
Sure.
crazy seeing inside. Yeah. Oh, and so then we moved to the aerial scene,
Right.
which is an explosion of glitter.
Yeah.
Talk about this one, because we were there on a unique night, because you were capturing this, and there was a little bit more glitter there.
Right. Well, I like a lot of glitter. And so to set the scene, this woman is dancing. Her name is Kelly. And she does this beautifully, this aerial number, and this it's kind of like a cage. It's kind of like an orb. I don't know what it is. It's something in between contraption that goes up in the air, and she spins around in it and whatnot. And so 2 weeks into the show, I was like, this piece needs something. We're mid-run, right? I was like, it needs glitter. So we just install these glitter buckets that work with pulley systems, and we just douse her in glitter midway through this dance. And there's strobe lights and there's glitter, and it's just I love it, But she hates it because there's always too much glitter, and it always gets in her mouth. And she's trying to dance, and she's trying to dance through it, And so there's definitely a balance that needs to be had with that glitter. But we were filming, so she wasn't very happy with me backstage, but she got through it.
It looks wonderful, though.
Yeah, it's beautiful. She's stunning. She's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, and then we rounded off with a zombie duet.
A zombie duet, yeah, that's what we call it.
And that one,
dances.
Yes, and that that's when I start thinking about the production value, like the scenic quality, and I'm like, okay, so where does all this wetness go? And how do you keep track? It's like you have to create a space so that this doesn't become a hot mess,
right,
or a wet mess.
No, I mean by the time we get to that dance, we haven't cleaned up the stage, So, by this time you have so much glitter on stage. You have water, you have Bible pages, you have rose petals that fall from the ceiling. And there's something really magical about dancing on top of Bible pages with this man that I dance with, and dancing kind of like through the mess, because in my head, Teddy, who I'm dancing with, who is a depiction of my grandfather, this is him dancing through his mess. And I didn't attempt to clean it up because I don't think he was able to in his life. So you're literally having Bible pages sticking to your hands and to your feet as you're dancing, and they do get in the way, and you are slipping on stuff, and sometimes it is somewhat chaotic. And the dance reflects that, and there's something really magical, but also kind of tragic about it,
Yeah.
and hard to get through. So that was a very conscious decision of, I don't want to clean this up. I want to dance through this.
And it gave me a sense of anxiety too, because I was like, please don't slip on any of this.
Right.
And I was like, I know you're all professionals, and
Right.
I'm like, I wonder, like, that's the intention here too, because I feel that too. And there's a whole lot of movement on the ground where I'm just like, is this floor ideal for like skin?
Right.
Like, you
Right.
know, skin constantly moving about on this floor.
Right.
But yeah, it's like it is an amazing ending.
Yeah, we worked really hard on this ending because I kind of wanted just to have this through line of this story, because it is through so many different vignettes and through so many different ideas, you know, that it's a powerful piece to me to dance with Teddy, um, because I feel like if my grandfather were able to express himself in real life, I may not be around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's this conflicting idea of dancing with him, because we're portraying him finding himself. Yet had he found himself, I wouldn't be around. So
Yeah. I know there's sometimes you look back on things that, now that you know about it, it's like a sad memory,
yeah,
but then you have to find these silver linings. And you do think, I think there was some, I think it's in the note that you have on the site when you get tickets, something about the world is in all black and white.
right. Yeah.
You're kind of embracing this grayscale. And I've been thinking about that a lot, where some of the things that frustrate me, it's like, well, I don't understand why certain people feel one way, when it seems like the common sense, the common mentality is to think more along the lines of how I'm thinking. But I'm actually questioning myself too, to say, wait, am I just thinking that my way is the right way because it's my way, or am I actually trying to understand and relate
Right.
to someone else's position in this too? And then I just come to the middle and say it's all gray.
Right. Exactly.
There's like balances of all of this, and without the disagreement, I can't really inform how I feel about this.
Yeah.
The way I feel about this particular topic. And I think that's very interesting, because we do have people that are completely on one side or the other,
Right.
and they don't realize that the answer is somewhere in the middle, because we are all different. We all come from different walks of life. Like you said, you came from a small town. I came from a small town, but they're not the same small town.
Right.
And we didn't have the same experience.
Right.
When we ended up here, so there's so much to learn there. And
Right.
and I just look at it all as like food for thought. It just gives
Yeah.
me more to think about. It doesn't necessarily change my opinion or invalidate my opinion.
Yeah, I work really hard not to have a polarized perspective.
Yeah.
Regardless of what that means, whether that means politics, whether that means, feminist rights, whatever it means. And it is a lot of work to do so.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how much structure the world has to it, and it's not surprising that so many people are now desperate to break that down and to find the great deal. We've definitely categorized life into these black and white scenarios that most people don't fit in anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting, and that's kind of what this whole show is about, and just finding that grayscale for yourself, and then giving away you an idea of the fact that most people are going through this in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Something to relate to.
Do you have? I know they're all your darlings. So I'm going to ask you two questions.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a favorite scene in Motel Montana? And do you have a favorite production of all of your productions up to this point?
Favorite scene. I think my favorite scene to dance in, and probably in the whole show, is the truck stop scene. I think there's something really magical about it. It feels very real to me. It feels very genuine. It's also very scary to dance, because we're up off the ground, we're doing hyper athletic work, and we're very sweaty by that point. So it's you go into it kind of on edge every time, which is really fun. Even on show 32, I think we're at, I still go into it not knowing if I'm going to be dropped or not, which is really fun. Some of these things can get a little routine, and that one doesn't feel like it's getting routine. It feels like anything could go wrong at any moment, and I love that. And it also is just really nice to have a balance of my energies by that point. I try to balance out my femme energy and my masculine energy, and that is just very masculine, and I don't express that side of me much, so it's fun to express. Favorite show, I think is Basement. I think I just love horror so much. Um, and there was something really magical about building that show, and how if I had a lot of the times I focus on how people are going to react to the work, or if people are going to enjoy the work, and I take the audience's um, ru- uh, experience into consideration quite a bit, because I'm very close to my audience, and a lot of them are very supportive of me. So I want everybody to have a good time. And Basement was a work where I threw that out the window, and I said, I don't care if you had a good time. I want this to be amazing for myself. And it worked for some people and it didn't work for others. And there was something really magical about that. And something that felt really real to me. And I won't do it every year, but there's something really great about just making something for you. And that show was my baby and my child. And I had a lot to say with that one, I think.
I think that's an element when you accept the artist and the artist's vision, whether you agree with it or not, because you may not resonate with it. But there's something being said here,
right,
that you're allowed to walk out of there feeling uncomfortable,
right,
but mission accomplished because you walk out of there feeling.
Right. Exactly.
So you walk out of there feeling some kind of way. Like maybe you won't go in your own basement for a minute.
Right. Some of my best experiences in artistic endeavors are the ones where I leave feeling the most uncomfortable or the most put off for some reason. I watch really disturbing movies just to feel something, and I'm just really into that idea of really getting down to the nitty-gritty of how art can make you feel. So if I can effectively do that for people, I'm into it,
Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm hearing something in my head that says, give Squid Game a chance.
Yeah.
I watched the
brilliant.
first episode and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch the rest.
Squid Game has so much to say through all of it all,
Yeah, and I know that there is something interesting at the end, and I gotta probably have to just soldier through it.
Don't watch it dubs, though. Watching it dubs is awful. They do such a bad job. You got to watch it in Korean and read it for sure. Yeah, because the voiceovers are they're almost hysterical, Definitely watch it in Korean. That's my advice.
What has been the audience response to this? And like just thinking about how everyone was just kind of waiting around for you guys to kind of get to some sense of I can come out and meet the audience. Like what has that experience been like at the end of each of these performances?
It's been really overwhelming, actually. I am incredibly introverted. And then I have about usually a month of the year where I'm incredibly extroverted. So I bottle all that energy up, and we've been doing this show for 3 times as long as I usually do it now. So my introverted side is freaking out. It's like you need to go hide in the woods or something. But I designed this show in January, and that's when regulations were fluctuating quite a bit. And it was really scary to design because these shows are extremely expensive. And there's a point where you get to it and there's no turning back, no matter what CDC says. So there's a point where you could really screw yourself over. And I kind of just blew past that point, crossing my fingers, hoping for the best, hoping that people would come out, and hoping I would get support. And it has been overwhelmingly supportive since then. People were ready for it. I think it helped that I really took into consideration this year what people would like to see, talking about the audience experience, like what everybody needed. That's my job. As an artist, you need to focus on the community and what people need to come out to and need in their life. So I think I did a good job of that this year. And yeah, I've never walked into a show that's been sold out throughout an entire run and extended. So so every time we've been on the stage, we've been sold out prior to that for that night, and it's great. It's really, really amazing. And there's something really, really magical about the show. There's something really magical about seeing people smiling again, seeing people talking again, seeing people sitting next to each other again. I mean, everybody is vaccinated in this scenario. We check vaccination cards at the door, and a lot of people are coming up to me and saying, "This is the most fun I've had in 2 years. Thank you so much for doing this." You know, and that's success for the work as well.
Yeah, I was wondering what was going to happen once we were, once this intermission was sort of letting up, because, I know that artists are consistently trying to make sense of this moment, and we haven't even begun to see, all of the artistic interpretations of this moment, because we're still in it.
We're still in shock.
Yeah, we're still in it. And, I was thinking about like how restricting it is for us to be amongst artists and not do the things we normally do, like hug and embrace and just those things. Like, we're just a very intimate kind of community, and like those are things we know are going to change in other parts of the world, and I think we're going to resist it when it comes to art. I think, especially as far as theater and dance are concerned, I think we're going to be like, oh no, I think we're great, just give me a hug.
I was very thankful for that response to the show, for sure.
Yes.
Because it was touch and go for a second.
So when you're coming down from this performance, and it's crazy that this is all happening within the course of an hour. So what do you do to kind of come down from this high energy? And by the way, the control you all have over your bodies are just amazing. Like some of these moves, you're just like, the whole time I was just like, such control. I mean,
that was taking a couple years off and then getting back into the show was its own set of hurdles, to be perfectly honest. We rehearsed for the show for 2 months, and we were in tears in rehearsal because our bodies didn't know what to do, talking about shock and trauma to the body. It was really, really hard to get into, and I'm so thankful that we're all in a place in it now that it can look controlled and it can look good on stage, because it wasn't for a while. It was really scary. Everybody was like, did I lose it? Like, am I not a dancer anymore? Like, you only have so much life in you as a performer and as a dancer, especially at this caliber when it's this athletic. So I'm just so thankful that we're able to pull it off. It's been a blessing,
Yeah. You fill that bathtub full of ice.
Yeah, for sure. And there have been many an ice bath throughout this process, for sure. The first month of this run was very hard on our bodies, and I think we're all getting used to it now, though.
Yeah. Well, what is sort of the self-care that you all provide for yourselves in order to do this every night?
It's different for everybody for the most part, but a lot of us are taking ice baths. A lot of us are getting very specific injuries that we're tending to. I couldn't walk because of a hamstring injury for half this run. Teddy just sprained his finger last night, so fingers crossed for that one. So it's a series of injuries that happen throughout a performance this long, and it's just about maintaining those injuries and getting through it the best you can. There's a lot of ibuprofen being passed around, I will say that, and it's a lot of we get here. Some of us get here 2.5 hours before a show starts just to start warming up and to get our bodies to a place where it needs to do this show. And most of us do a really good job of taking care of our bodies because we listen to it and we know what it needs. And we know what to feed it and all this stuff, So yeah, definitely ice baths. That's my go-to.
Can you see Motel Montana extending beyond this region?
It's interesting. I I don't love the idea. Everybody thinks that success is the idea of something being longer, or something being in New York City, or something being in London, or on Broadway. And I really like these ideas as vignette ideas. I think there's something really, really beautiful about creating a world, living in it for however long it lives, 3 months max, and then you break it all down. You you it disappears. You're literally like working with departure in a way. You're kind of and working through the death of something, and then you get to rebuild something else. I like the idea of just moving from world to world. And a lot of people are very insistent on some of these worlds living on, and there's just so much to build, and there's so much to create, and there's so much to make, that like the idea of just living in one world seems a little stunting, you know?
Yeah.
I'm ready to like, let's just move on to the next thing. Let's get these ideas out of this head, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
that was my mindset when I started a theater company.
for sure.
Was, there's a lot of things I want to do, and until I figure them out, I want to, create those worlds on stage to say,
Yeah.
like, I work in a coffee shop for for a month, and then as soon as I get tired of working here, the show's closed.
Yeah.
I'll do another one in a
Exactly.
bowling alley, or something like that.
Yeah, and there's something really just magical about being able to explore all the facets of yourself and your personality through your work and the different worlds you create. Whether it's the darkness of a serial killer den, or if it's the brightness and the queerness of this motel, and I really enjoy embracing the multi dimensions of my character, and not getting stuck on one track, and not living in a world too long, and just exploring every facet of myself, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that halfway through a production, you're thinking about the next production.
Yeah. I'm actually building the next production now. Somehow the creative energy works that way. And I get tired of the production I'm working on because it's done and it's set in stone for the most part. And then my mind just starts creating a new one.
Can you give us a teaser?
I can
tell us something.
I can tell you that for the most part, it doesn't always stay the same. Like the ideas are fleeting and coming and going. But I can tell you that it feels a little witchy. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
And it feels like it's going to be more horror based for my horror fans, but not as dramatic as Basement, I would say. But that could also all change tomorrow,
I'm seeing way too much hocus pocus theme things out.
We're gonna stay away from hocus pocus. That's been done,
Yeah. As soon as you said witchy, I'm thinking like, ooh, okay, all right. So I want 3 words out of here. We got witchy. Give me 2 more words.
2 more words. I would say witchy. I say I really want to build a forest. I want my audience in a forest in the woods, and I would say femme fatale would be the go-to word for this next upcoming production, which could change whenever, All
right. That sounds, yes.
So yes. A femme fatale witch forest, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah, something
all right.
like
that. All right.
Let's see.
I'm on board.
Yeah. I'll get you on board. Don't worry. I'll get you on board.
Yes. Witchy forest femme fatale. The next Gunnar Montana production.
We'll see.
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Gunnar, I've taken up way too much of your time. I want to thank you so much for breaking this down with me. Tell our listeners how they can book a reservation at Motel Montana.
I'd say, you know what? I direct everybody to my Instagram because it's way too much fun. So I have all the information you need on there. My handle is Gunnar Montana. And tickets are right on my, what is that called? A profile? Right on my profile. I'm always posting.
Link in bio.
For sure. Yeah, and I only have a handful of tickets left for this whole run, so we gotta get them fast.
There you go. So if you're listening, I hope you already got them. If not, what are you waiting for? Get in there. Book your reservation. Gunnar Montana. Motel Montana is a spectacle of light and fire and sex and passion, and it's a wonderful experience coming out of a crazy intermission. This was a wonderful respite. I really enjoyed the experience, and I'm so glad that I got a chance, and so glad for the extension, because I initially thought I was unfortunately going to miss this. There was a lot going on in September, and I was like, oh no. I said, I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be sold out. It'll be fine.
Oh, we love to have you in the audience, though.
Yes. It was great. And I loved how, much of the audience was very much in tune, and there were a lot of people trying to like, woo!
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There were a lot of people just taking it all in. And when you said you want them to sort of transition, the scenes to transition into each other and not really give us any time.
Yeah.
I love that too, because it's just like, wow, you're just looking at each other going, wow, okay. I can't wait to see what's next.
For sure.
This company, a wonderful a group of dancers. Everybody was just great, and I had a chance to talk to a couple of them, and I just realized, how embracing and small the dance community is here, because I recognized a couple of your dancers from other work that I'd seen, and I was just like, oh wow, that was you! Oh my god!
Yeah,
so worthy. It was just amazing. But thank you so much for taking the time to unpack this. And so if you have not made your reservation to Motel Montana, now's your chance. You can go to Instagram and search Gunnar Montana, or you can go to GunnarMontana.com. But you should go to the Instagram first. There's a whole lot of fun there. It'll just entice you, and then you click the link and get these tickets and be a part of this. Oh, you know what else I would love to see? I would love to see a black and white version of this. There's something about of Motel Montana. There's something about all this color popping. Yeah. And it sort of just reminds me of the 50s and 60s, how it was all in a grayscale. Yeah. Because that feeds your artistic vision as well. Right. To see in that element. Just because I know you filmed it. Just play around with that and see what it looks like.
I will, actually. That's great. Absolutely.
I think that'll be interesting, just to see how these colors pop, how these elements pop in that space in a grayscale. But Gunnar, this was truly a pleasure. I always look forward to experiencing your work if I don't always get to unpack it. And thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is
Rep Radio is an Emory production. You can find Rep Radio on social media at Rep Radio on Facebook, at Rep_Radio on Instagram and Twitter. For more information, visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.